So first and foremost, when I say I was a model in Japan, I do not mean that I was like walking runways and being on magazine covers. If you want advice on how to be that type of model, I have no idea. I never figured it out. I guess be born looking like Scarlett Johansson or somebody. But what I did was a lot more mundane and accessible. I was a foreign part-time model. I worked for a company that pretty much specialized in hiring just random looking foreigners in Japan. And then whenever a Japanese company did an advertisement commercial, some person to stand in the background to make their ad look more diverse and multicultural, they would come to my company and they would in turn reach out to us, the models that they picked off the streets in some cases, and that is the type of modeling that I did in Japan. So in today's video, I'll be going over 3 things. 1, how to be a model in Japan. 2, what's it like being a model in Japan. And 3, some of my personal anecdotes. I'm going to talk about my first job, my worst job, and my best job. So as I alluded to earlier, these companies that I'm going to be talking about target foreigners specifically, which is great in Japan because in a country that's 98% not foreigners, your competition is way less. It's like how when you come to Japan, you're already in the top 2% of English speakers in the entire country. Same goes for your competition in modeling. And the thing about it too is even if you don't think you're the traditional modeling type, even if you never liked pictures or you never imagined yourself in that kind of role, or you just think, you know, you're too old at this point, they're looking for all types. A lot of these jobs are just extras in the background or people of different roles. So they accept all genders, all nationalities, all ethnicities, all hair color, eye color, skin color. Basically, they're looking for just all ages and everybody. After all, you can't hire the 21-year-old blonde bombshell to play Mr. Miyagi. So don't write yourself off and give it an honest shot if you're looking for a part-time job where you can make some money. Or just for fun, because a lot of the jobs are fun. So first off, for those interested in being a model, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you do it. If not, feel free to skip ahead, or if you're just interested in the process anyways. Oh, and also don't think you need any experience, because also first off, who has like any experience being a model? That's kind of wild. Okay, so how to join one of these agencies? 3 main ways. 1, you can be approached on the streets. If you go to Harajuku, Shibuya, Shinjuku, basically any of the really busy, younger, hip areas, there will be scouts on the street, and it is actually not that uncommon at all if you're all dressed up looking nice for people to approach you about modeling or modeling jobs. A word of warning about this though, you don't really have a good idea of who these people are, what company they represent, and honestly the big foreign modeling companies are probably not going to send people out on the streets. More common, it's going to be people who are trying to scout for a personal job. So you might have someone, a Japanese company, who wants to film this commercial, and instead of going through the modeling agency, the price will probably be higher, so instead they send people out to go try to scout people on the street. I'm not saying these aren't reliable and they can't lead to good jobs and further opportunities, but it is to take with a grain of salt and to be a little cautious and to do your research if you do get approached by one of these. Method number 2, the companies will sometimes slide into your Insta DMs. I'm dead serious, especially if you have quite a few followers, like maybe over 1,000, couple thousand, and you have really nice pictures. Also, a pro tip if you're angling for this to happen, try using the hashtag gaikokujin moderu, which is foreign model. A lot of these companies will search using that hashtag, and if they like you, they'll send you a DM either asking you for a specific project or to join their company. It's pretty common. In method 3, I saved the best for last. This is old reliable. This is what I recommend people do. Just go to the website and apply directly there yourself. This is the easiest way to do it. Here's a list of the top 5 foreign modeling agencies that I would recommend. My number 1 recommendation is listed at number 1, Freewave. They're a great first choice. They're very foreign friendly. They have great English speaking staff. This is the agency that I first started with, and they are great at giving you beginner jobs and getting you out there. Plus, registering with them is super simple. You just apply on their website directly, fill out their little application, and send some pictures of yourself. Now, this is the most important part here. You don't need like nice professional pictures. I think the pictures I took were just some random shots of me. I'll insert them here that like my friend took for me one time. They weren't professional or anything. But you still want to make them as nice as possible and kind of give a variety. Make sure you have a body shot, a head shot. Yeah, just look nice in them. If they like your pictures from the application, they'll send you a follow-up email and they'll request that you come into the office for an in-person interview. You go into the office, they explain the whole procedure to you, and if you pass that interview, then they'll just sign you with their agency. And don't be afraid to sign up for more than one agency. The vast majority of models are, and they will even ask you like, hey, what other agencies are you signed with? Because it's just kind of assumed that you're gonna. I signed up with 4, I think, over time. Not all at once, but I think I was with Freewave, Avocado, Ascend, and there was one other. Obviously, I didn't use it much. I don't even remember the name. So don't be afraid to sign up for multiple companies. You can get different jobs through the companies. So let's say you get to the interview process and you go in for your interview. Now the interview does include a photo shoot. So of course, that can be a little nerve-wracking, and it was my first photo shoot. Basically, like I said, Freewave was my first company. I passed the email photo selection stage and they asked me to come into their office, and they informed me that like, hey, there is gonna be a photo shoot, so bring a couple different outfits and then you can show us like, you know, your poses. And I'm like, my poses? What poses? This is like my only pose and I don't think that's gonna fly. So it was super nerve-wracking. I was super nervous, but everyone at the company was extremely professional. I told them like, hey, I don't have any experience. This is my first time doing a photo shoot. And my photographer, a nice girl who like worked at the company, she was like, don't worry about it. It's a lot of people's first times. We're gonna walk you through it. So I changed into my outfit, got in front of just like a white background screen. You know, it is like the professional setup. And she really helped me kind of just walk me through it. Like, hey, we're gonna do full body shots now. You know, do your thing. And like, once again, I didn't have a thing, but I did Google some basic like pros and tips and a couple basic poses. And the best advice I can give, besides, you know, Googling like basic, like, you know, shift your weight on one leg and, you know, act like there's a string tugging at the top of your head, you know, to make sure you're sitting upright and you're not slouched. Because you realize very quickly, being a model or maybe even just taking a bunch of pictures of yourself, that the mental image of what you think you look like in your head or the expression you're making often does not reflect on the camera and the photograph. So practice in front of the mirror a bit. But as I was saying, the best advice too is, baby, fake it till you make it, you know? They think you're professional. Act like you're professional. When you go on jobs, they're gonna assume you know what you're doing. So just fake the confidence all the way until one day it becomes real confidence. I think that's how confidence usually works for almost anything anyways. So just put yourself out there, don't be afraid, and realize also a lot of your jobs too are not going to involve just you in a photo shoot. That's kind of like higher level stuff. So you'll get through it, don't worry about it. The other really important part of the interview process too is they're going to have you fill out a form, which of course has basic information like your name, birthday, you know, blood type, which matters in Japan, that kind of stuff. But the most important part of this form is the special skills. And this actually can get you a lot of jobs if you have a skill that sets you apart from someone else. Of course, singing, playing instruments, those are great ones. But for me, I put tennis, of course. I have been playing tennis my whole life. When I was 11 years old, I coached tennis. I played in college. So I actually got a lot of my modeling jobs through my tennis experience. Because once again, if you can have a specific skill and they're looking for someone with your specific skill, well, that foreign pool, which is already small, becomes even smaller when you realize the subset of your specific skill. So don't skip out on the skills. I think I listed a bunch of ridiculous things. I was like, oh, I'm a great ice skater. I can sing. I can play piano. I can play heart and soul on piano. That's about it. I can, you know, do ping pong. Tennis, I feel like was the only one I wasn't like, you know, exaggerating the truth a little bit. But, you know, it's okay. It's like a job interview. Just lie through the interview. And then when you get the job, just figure out, you know, on the job. It is fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Okay, next, so you became a model. Congrats. What is it actually like? Well, it is just so glamorous. Oh my goodness. No, not really. It's kind of like any other job. In fact, most days I wouldn't even find myself particularly looking forward to a shoot in particular for a couple different reasons. One, honestly, most of the shoots consist of just a lot of waiting around. They consist of a really early call time. A lot of times you don't even get paid that much. And then a big fourth factor for me too is that when you get a job, you receive very minimal information on the job. So a lot of times you're just showing up on the day with almost zero idea of what to expect, which can be exciting for some, but for others who don't like walking into the complete unknown, it can be a little nerve-wracking. But let's back up for a second. So how do you get a job in the first place? What does the process look like? Well, pretty much all jobs, once you're signed up with your agency, rely on the same exact system. So all of my agencies have the same system. So it all starts with an email. When the company gets a job and the people at the company think you might be a good fit for the job, they will send you an email and it'll basically be like, hi, insert name here. I found this great job for you. Here's the pay. Here's a very, very brief description of what the job will be like. And here's the date the shoot will be. Do you want to accept the job? And that's pretty much how all jobs start. And most modeling agencies rely on a keep system. So the keep system is how I, as the model, respond to the email. So you can either say first keep, second keep, or no thanks. So first keep is, yes, I want the job and I am committing 100% to that date that is there. If you send this first keep back, you don't even know if you have the job yet. You better show up. You better sacrifice your firstborn to make sure you show up to the job and you have that date free because you are committing to that date. Second keep means I'm interested in the job. However, I'm not sure if I can commit to this date yet. And then third one option, no, I don't want the job. Don't consider me at all. So that's the keep system. Of course, it's easy to put second keep down, but a lot of companies will automatically get rid of you for second keep. You're a lot more likely to get picked if you're first keep and they know they can have you. And of course, this seems simple. You can keep track of the dates, but you get a lot of these emails, especially once you start getting jobs, the company sees you're hireable and they'll start sending you more and more emails. So at one point, I just had like a full notepad of like dates listed. March 13th, first keep for this job. March 15th, first keep for this job. And of course, it's not like I have all these jobs, but I just said, hey, I'd be interested in all these jobs because out of like 10 or 20 jobs you apply for, you'd be doing good to get like 1 or 2 or 3. So keeping track of all these jobs is pretty difficult. And then, if you're trying to make plans with your friends or in the future, you kind of have to scroll through your keeps and be like, oh, I don't think I can do this day, and this day because I have a job I probably won't even be able to have. So that's kind of the keep system. The other important piece of information on this email is what the rest of the audition process is going to be like. And there's a couple different options. If the job is small enough, if it's just like you're an extra in the background or something insignificant like that, not that you're insignificant, just the company thinks you are. Don't base your value on a company's opinion of you. I learned that the hard way. But if it's a sorry for the diatribe, if it's a small role, that's probably all you need to do is just respond to the email and then they'll just let you know based off pictures if you have the job or not. The bigger the job gets, the more lengthy the process is. And for any kind of significant roles, there's probably going to be an audition before they actually decide on who to hire. And these auditions you also have to give keeps for. So you might have to commit a first keep to an audition date, a second audition date, and then the final job. So one job you might have 3 first keeps. And then, keep in mind, if you gave these dates first keeps, you can't give any other job offers you might receive those days. So if a smaller job that you think you can maybe get comes in, but oh no, you promised that second keep for, let's be real, you're not getting the Budweiser commercial. Like you promised that audition date, you can't apply for the smaller job. So something to keep in mind. So let's say a job has an audition. What is that like? Well, it varies wildly on what type of job it is. Let's say you're going in for a more traditional modeling, clothing-esque style job, in which case the audition process is extremely soul-crushing. It's like you walk into the room and you look around and it's like the world's average attractiveness rating just shot up 3 points, like you stepped into an episode of The Bachelor or something. Fun fact, I actually did do an audition for Japan's version of The Bachelor, not as like one of the contestants, because that sounds terrible, but as like a person in the background anyways. But yeah, that can be really demoralizing. For a lot of the tennis jobs I did, my audition actually just involved going to a tennis court and playing tennis because I wanted to see my form. I started getting acting job offers, so in that case you have to act in the audition, which is mortifying. And don't worry, I apologized to the director for my performance after I learned, that I should never subject the world to my acting and I shall never do that again. And I saw myself out at that one, and that I never looked back on that one. But if you're good at acting, you act, obviously. So once you're on a job, what is it like? I would say this actually has less to do with what type of job it is and more to do with what your position is within the job. Like, are you just an extra in the background? Okay, well then I can tell you what your day is going to be like. You're going to have a really early start time. You're going to have to show up. No one's going to pay attention to you. And you're going to sit around for 90% of your time until the one little scene that you might be in, they'll call you over, you'll stand there, no one will give you really hardly any instructions. They might shout something in Japanese at you, and you'll do a couple takes and you'll go back to waiting. And that's the majority of your day. You do get a nice bento box like halfway through that, which is pretty cool, and the bento boxes are usually pretty tasty. But yeah, that's gonna be your experience if you're just kind of like an extra in the background. If you're the lead, like if you're the lead in a commercial or you have an important role or you're the main person, your day will be extremely different. You'll get your hair and makeup done. By the way, I really don't like it usually how they do my makeup here. It looks terrible. I had this job once where I was a cheerleader for Uniqlo. I'll post a picture. And I think you can see I look angry in the picture with how they did my hair and makeup. They did these crazy like Barbie curls in this horrible lipstick shade. Oh man, Japanese hair and makeup really can be hit or miss. I'm not sure they know exactly how to treat the foreigners on that one, but anyhow, you'll get your hair and makeup done, and you depending on how big the project is, you can actually be treated pretty nice. I remember a big project I did, I had my own personal like assistant and like staff, and I'll talk more about that in like my personal stories because that includes one of my favorite shoots that I did. But anyways, it can be a very big experience, and if you're a lead, you can be working a lot of the time. I've had jobs where I was pretty much working and doing something the entire time with very, very few breaks in between. So your experience can vary wildly on set. But a consistent thing is usually that you get to meet super cool people. Usually they'll have other foreign models or just other cool Japanese staff that you can talk to, and everyone I've met has been really cool. And some of my favorite things about being a model is like the people I've met. So what is the pay like? Well, the pay is per job, and they tell you that in the email. If you're working kind of like an extra job, if you're just someone in the background, you can probably expect the pay to be, and I'll say it in USD, between like probably $100 to $300, something like that. And that's gonna be one of those jobs where you just show up, you're probably gonna be in a group of many potentially, and you're in a scene and you're in the background, you probably won't even get hair and makeup, you'll just like work for a couple hours, wait for a lot longer, and you get paid about $100, $300 for about 1 day's worth of work. It's not bad. And then I would almost kind of say it jumps a little bit to the next tier, which can be anywhere between, I'd say like $700 to maybe like $2,000 or $3,000. And once you kind of get past the $700 range, I feel like these are the jobs where you need auditions. You're gonna have to go through potentially a couple of rounds of auditions in order to get these jobs, whereas most of the jobs that are under like $300, it's only gonna be based off an email and photo selection. It's not gonna be based off an audition. And these jobs obviously are a lot nicer because they're still usually only 1 or 2 days worth of work, but you could be potentially getting paid up to like $2,000 or $3,000 for your day's worth of work. Those aren't common though. I think I only had one of those. The little $100, $200 ones, those are kind of like, I feel like your bread and butter. One final point on this is like, can you do this modeling full-time? And the answer is you can. And you can actually change from a part-time worker to a full-time. If you do really, really, really well, like some of the top earners in the company, they might offer you to switch to a modeling visa, which would mean you do this full-time. Although a word of caution for the modeling visa, I have a couple friends who are on this visa, and it is very temperamental. You know, the pay already is unsteady. Some weeks or some months you can be making bank, and then the others, it's like, you know, you only got 1 or 2 little extra stand-in jobs and you can't even afford rent. And then the modeling visa itself has to be renewed every 6 months, and your company will determine if they want to renew it based off your performance for that 6 months. So you can lose it at any time. So I hear it's very, very stressful. So if that's your thing, you can go for it, but I absolutely it sounds terrible, honestly. Okay, so lastly, now I'm going to talk about a couple of my personal experiences. Also, real quick disclaimer, I'm super thankful for all the jobs I've had. I know I'm very fortunate, and I'm very lucky to have never had a truly negative experience, and all my stories here are just in good fun. Enjoy. Starting with the first ever modeling job I had. Of course, at the beginning, I'm not getting that many emails, so when I received this job offer and I see that it needs a tennis player and they want someone with actual tennis experience, and I had to submit a video of myself playing tennis, I was really excited. I thought I had a really good shot at this job, and then yeah, I found out I got it. So I was super pumped. I was like, oh, this is great. I don't have to do any weird posing or anything, you know, uncomfortable for my first job. I can just show up and I can play tennis. I don't even have to really model or anything. The really cool thing about this job too was that it was for the Olympics. They wanted a tennis player for an Olympic ad campaign they were doing, so that was even more exciting. This was back when Japan was hosting the Olympics. So the day comes, I show up to the studio. I'm already a little concerned because when I walk to the studio, I kind of realized like, oh, hey, this studio, it's not a tennis court. Did we realize that? Did someone check that? You know? And it's very purposeful, and instead it's a completely white blank background, and it just has a bunch of people like cameramen, Japanese cameramen, the director, with all their cameras facing towards just the white backdrop. And I'm like, oh, okay, actually, this might be more of a traditional like photo shoot than I was thinking. But you know, that's fine. I can do it. I can just, you know, swing my racket, do a couple cute little flicks, you know, we can make it work. So then I go up to hair and wardrobe, and they put me just in the most cliche, like cutesy girl tennis player outfit with all the wristbands, sweatbands you've ever seen. So I'm already like, oh, this is not my normal vibe, but you know, this is what being a model is about, I guess, you know, becoming someone else. So I'll try to channel that. So I go down, After getting the outfit on, I meet the director, I shake his hand, I say, yo, what's up? Of course I say that in Japanese, so it sounds more like hajime mashite desu desu, you know? That's kind of like the rough translation. And he says, are you ready? I'm ready. And he's like, okay, great. Take a seat. Take a seat? What do you mean take a seat? And he motions towards a wheelchair. I'm like, a wheelchair? And he's like, oh, did I say the Olympics? Dude, I meant the Paralympics. You're a wheelchair-bound tennis player. And I was like, oh, cool. That's, I can do that too. No worries. So I'm already thrown for a bit of the loop, but I sit down in my wheelchair on the white backdrop, like right behind me, and in front of me is just about 4 different cameras, 50 different Japanese crew people all staring at me in my cutesy girl little outfit, sitting in my wheelchair. I'm kind of like, well, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? What is this experience? This is the weirdest thing. And eventually the cameraman's telling me like, okay, it's very simple. We only need you for like a shot or 2. I just want you to like act like you're hitting the ball, and then you do like a cheer like you made a good shot. I'm like, okay, where's the ball? And he's like, you know, act like you're hitting the ball. I'm like, oh, act, yeah. No, my Japanese little, you know, not Nihongo Josie yet, sorry. So I take my first swing, I go and I do like, I think a pretty solid like tennis stroke, and the director's like, cut, what was that? And I'm like, oh, it was a tennis stroke, it was a good one too. And he's like, no, that looked terrible. Like, you don't actually want to do a tennis stroke. It looks bad on camera. I just want you to look like you're doing a tennis stroke. And keep in mind, this is all in Japanese, so I'm not fully, and this is right when I moved to Japan too, so I'm not fully like understanding very clearly. Luckily, a manager was there on set that day, my manager, to help me kind of like translate and bridge the communication gaps. So my manager kind of runs out in between takes and he's like, oh no, the director is saying, hey, don't do that, do this, hold it this way, and just basically like freeze frame, you know, don't do an actual stroke. And I'm like, freeze frame? Okay, fine. So I go and do my stroke, and then halfway through I freeze. And he's like, no, that looks terrible. That's not where your arm's supposed to be. And I'm like, dude, I coach tennis. It's where my arm's supposed to be. And he's like, no, it looks bad. Hold it like this. And he just motions me to like hold out my arm in a random direction. And the whole time I'm thinking like, dude, why did you even get a tennis player if I'm just gonna like, you're just gonna move me like a marionette doll anyways. But anyways, I just hold my racket out. I'm like, here you go, dude. He's like, no, it's a video. Your arm needs to move. And I'm like, God. Okay. So I try to like move my arm, and he's like, no, move it forward like this. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen a tennis player, but this is not a natural tennis player movement. But anyways, that's what I did. And he's like, okay, but you need to shout. You need to be excited that you won. It's like, oh God. In this completely silent, like you can hear a pin drop studio in front of like 50 different Japanese people. I am supposed to just shout as loud as I can like I just won a point in tennis. So I'm just like, ha! That was like my first attempt, and that's not even what I usually sound like when I play tennis. Of course, the director thought it was perfect. No, just kidding. He hated it, of course. And he was like, no. Yell something you would yell in tennis. It's like, okay, why you just say like, let's go? That's a really common thing to say after a long point. So I'm like, let's go. You know, I'm really getting into it. Once again, what I said before about just, you know, you just got to do it. Be brave. It's, you know, ride or die. There's no other option just to do it. So I do that. I think it's pretty good. He's like, no, that's not what tennis players say. I'm like, what do you mean that's not what that is? That's like what I say. And he's like, no. You need to say yippee. And I'm like, what? Yippee? And he's like, yeah, yippee sounds good. So I'm like, yippee. Instead, he's like, no, higher. I'm like, yippee. And he's like, that was perfect. And I'm like, oh God. So then I have to redo that about 15 times to get the perfect take. You know, yippee. No, it's too low. Be higher. Yippee. He's like, no, it's too much like Yoshi or Mario. Like, just having to redo it. Of course, I was just having fun with it at that point. I was like, this is ridiculous, but let's do it. And that's pretty much, I shot for about 20 minutes, I think, doing just that. And yeah, that was the whole shoot. I was only there. That was a really short one. I think I was only there for an hour or 2 at the time. The cool part about that one is I was actually invited to a pre-opening ceremony where they displayed like the complete video of the footage that I was in for the Paralympics. Like they set up an exhibit and I saw myself, and it's just like, I was on screen for like a second and I wasn't even moving, and you couldn't even hear me. There was no audio. So all my embarrassing yelling and trying to perfect the perfect shout, meaningless in the end. Absolutely meaningless. But that is the way the cookie crumbles, and it was fun getting to go to the event and seeing all the other different Paralympic openings. And it actually made me look into wheelchair tennis, and those guys are insane. They're crazy. Wheelchair tennis players, mad respect. Anyways, all in all, not too bad of a job. Okay, so I get asked a lot, what's the worst modeling job you ever did? And honestly, I have not had that many bad modeling jobs. Only one comes to mind that was really bad. The rest were either just like boring or just kind of tiring. There's only one experience that made me like rethink the whole thing. And it was actually a hand modeling job. So my face was not even in it. It was literally just like my hands. And I thought, oh, that's easy. I've always joked about how, you know, if my entire like engineering degree plan career falls through, I'll just be a hand model. Anyone could do that. So it was for a pretty famous cosmetic brand here, and it wasn't for like makeup, but it was for like creams, oils, all for like your hands, soaps, that kind of thing. So the selection process was also photo only, so I sent some really nice pictures of my hands in. Here they are. Sometimes in the emails they'll ask you for like specific things, so send in some pictures of my hands. I got the job, which was nice. And this job was actually my first 2-day job. So they had one day where they had to do test shoots. So basically they tried to just figure out the angles and everything. And then the second day was the actual shoot. Flash to the day of the actual shoot. I get there, my call time, I think it's 7 a.m., which is fine. Most of the call times are around even earlier than that potentially. So I show up, it's a pretty empty studio. I learned that there's me and there's one other girl on the project who's like, her face is in the video. So it's me with my hands and her like as the face model. And I try to talk to her. She was a Russian model. I don't think she spoke a lot of English. And she didn't seem too keen on talking to me anyways, which, you know, I don't blame her or anything. So I was kind of by myself weirdly on this project. Everyone just kind of left me to do my own thing. There is a waiting room off to the side, which had like one couch in it, and that's pretty much it, like a table. And then there was the main studio, which was a normal, like almost all black studio with a couple white backdrops set up with cameras facing forward towards it, like kind of like the last one, a pretty normal setup. And I am scheduled to shoot first, which is great. Usually when you come on these shoots, they give you a call schedule for the day. So it's like, hey, at this time, we plan to shoot this scene, and here's what this scene's gonna be. It's one of the first times you can fully see like what the job is gonna be and what you're actually gonna be doing for the day. So I look at it, I go through it. Okay, so I see I'm scheduled to shoot first. I'm scheduled to shoot from, I think, like 7 a.m. all the way to about 1 p.m. And then I'll be done. So not bad. Of course, usually it's important to note, almost every single shoot I've ever been on in my entire life runs late. I don't know why they don't just give themselves more cushion time, because never once has a shoot gone on time according to schedule. They are always slow. So clearly the calculations are off somewhere. But anyways, I see I'm scheduled to be done at 1 p.m. Not that bad. So I go and I start doing the hand modeling job, and I realized very quickly this is not going to be as a pleasant of experience as I originally thought it would be. First off, I made a couple crucial errors. One, I was still trying to look really nice when I show up to the job, so I was in kind of like a tight-fitting top, skinny jeans, and I was wearing like heels. And for this job, I realized they pretty much just had a tiny little stool for me, and I would sit on the stool, and then basically the hand shots that they wanted, where my face is now, is basically the camera's POV, you know, because it's supposed to look like it's kind of your own hands, was the concept of the video. Which, if you kind of realize the problem with that logistical setup, it's that my face exists where my face is, you know, I can't like mount a camera on it. So what ends up happening is like you have the huge camera, and then I'm kind of like out from the bottom here trying to like wrap my hands around where they would normally be. And that's like this, I'm kind of like this in a lot of the setup for the shots to make that POV work. And then on top of that, I have to hold some kind of lotion bottle, you know, and I have to like shake the bottle once, and a drop has to land perfectly on the exact center of my hand. And they mean perfectly. I had to keep redoing it, because if the dot didn't land in a perfect little location, or if my shake didn't look, you know, carefree enough, they want to redo it. So I'd be like this, trying to get the bottle I'm like trying to watch my hand, like, no, you didn't shake it right. And I'm like, I am trying, I'm trying. And I have to twist and contort, and they want so many different angles, and they have such clear visions in their head of how they wanted my hands to align. So like, even if my hands were just a little off an angle, like, no, that's not what the picture script like looks like. You need to like twist your hand. I'm like, dude, these are human hands. They only twist like so far, you know? So it was basically from the first part of the shoot, 7 to 1, so that's like 4 hours of me doing that and contorting, and then I would have to hold it, my arms out from my body like this for long takes, for long periods at a time, while trying to either like get the liquid to land perfectly in my hand or rubbing oil over my hands. My hands were so gross by the end of this. They had so many products on them. So my back was already killing me. The heels were a terrible idea. I learned that my body does not contort in ways that it should not contort, obviously. I found the limits of my flexibility that day, so to speak. But anyways, my shoot was coming to a close. I think I only had like 1 or 2 takes left to do. And then suddenly the director comes up to me and he's like, hey, so like, I know the face model was scheduled to go after you're done, but she has some things to do. So do you mind moving all of her scenes right before we finish your last scene? So basically waiting until she's done shooting all of her scenes before they finish like my last scene or 2. And I'm like, do I mind? No, why would I mind that? I don't mind. I was still trying to be like professional, be like, oh yeah, it's okay, it's cool. Learned a huge lesson that day. Say screw you, I'm almost done, finish my scenes. Now that is the lesson I learned. But of course I didn't say that. I was like, oh yeah, no problem. How long do you think it would take to film her scenes? And they're like, oh, how long? You know, probably like, you know, not that long, don't worry about it. I'm like, oh, okay, sure. Y'all want to guess how long it took to film all of her scenes? So she started shooting at about 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m. They're still shooting. And at this point, I'm kind of like, hey, listen, my like phone's about to die and I'm hungry because I literally haven't eaten. And just like, is she almost done? You know, I don't want to be pushy or anything, but like, I've just been chilling in this room by myself with no Wi-Fi, by the way, for, you know, like 5 hours now. Not that I'm keeping track or anything, you know, you have to be very professional, of course, because, you know, they're the client. And they're like, oh yeah, man, she's almost done. I'm like, okay, cool. So how long do you think until I shoot? And they're like, oh, how long? Well, you know, soon, yeah, probably soon, anytime, no, yeah. I'm like, oh God, oh no. At this point, I was so bored. My phone was dying. I told them, I was like, hey, if I'm gonna stay then, I need to at least have like a phone charger or something because my phone's about to die. So one of the poor interns, you know, who I'm sure has to work as ridiculous hours as I do, goes and she finds me a phone charger so I can like at least plug my phone in. I think I call my friend like Sarah then, and she talks to me for literally like 3 or 4 hours as I just, you know, complain basically about the job. So 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m. Finally, midnight rolls around, and I'm just like steam out of my ears at this point. So bored. So like, I've just been sitting in this room with nothing to do all day. I'm still in pain. They're finally like, hey, Alyssa, how are you doing? I'm like, doing so good. And they're like, oh, so glad to hear it. Hey, we're finally almost ready for you to shoot. I'm like, almost ready. 1 a.m. is when I started shooting again. And at this point, I am not looking forward to having to do my contortion act again, because it was, I'm not in the mood, honestly, at that point. And even worse, at that point, the like CEO of Kosei Cosmetics had shown up to oversee the shoot. And I guess it's like this thing they do in Japanese culture where she has to oversee and show us how to do the product. So before every take, they'd have her get up, they'd give her like the product, and she'd do like a sample. She'd be like this. And then we'd all be like, oh, sugoi desu ne, amazing. That was revolutionary, the way you shook that bottle. And of course, because she's like, it needs to look like, oh, I'm getting like flashbacks just thinking about it. So then we go back to my contortionist, and at this point, I feel like I'm even more sore, so I just wasn't getting the angles that the director wanted. At one point, I even heard one of his crew just say like, hey, she's human, she can't like bend that way. And I'm like, thank you for saying it for me, you sweet, sweet intern. Interns are always the nicest people. On the shoots, by the way. So then at one point he starts literally taking my arms and grabbing my arms and violently like pulling my arms to try to get it in the position that he wants. And I'm just so like out of it and defeated at that point that I just like let him do it, and he's just like pulling my arms, and I'm just like desperately trying to get through it. And we shoot for about 2 more hours, and then at 3 a.m. we finally wrap up, and he's like, you can go home now, thank you, otsukare-sama deshita. And I'm just like, oh my god. That was a terrible, terrible experience. Terrible. And I just left defeated and broken and wondering if it was all worth it. I did get paid overtime. There's the one like silver lining. I got paid decent overtime. But that was a pretty like low point. I was pretty just like tired and frustrated the whole day. And you still have to remain like professional and upbeat, which is one of the hardest parts. To be fair though, you know, the rest of the crew was on the shoot too, you know, everyone, no one besides the one face model left early. So you do work ridiculously long hours, and the mindset is very much, we stay until it's done, however long that takes. And I definitely felt it on that job, for sure. Luckily that I didn't have any other experiences like that. But yeah, I really got to kind of see that side of Japanese work culture on that one. Okay, and then real quick, I'm just gonna mention like 2 of my favorite jobs, and these don't have long stories to them. They're just honestly just cool experiences. One was that I got to be in a J-pop music video. That was super fun. I got to meet the idol, I got to talk to her, and the video concept was super cute. It was a traditional idol in that she was super cute, super small, super like genki desu, you know? And dude, when she told me her age, she said she was like 35 or something, and she looked like 20. It's amazing. But the music video itself was really cool. It was a one-shot music video, meaning we shot the whole thing in one take, and it was kind of, she was going through like a house party. So she went out to the gardens, into the house, and in the last scene is like all her friends she met throughout the music video, the day, were at this house party at the end. So a lot of the day was like choreographing the dance routine and the setup of like, hey, so when she comes out, she's gonna wave to you and you'll say this, and then she's gonna walk off, but because we have to be in the final party take, we all have to run quickly, you know, to the next room to be ready to set up for the party scene, and then we'll be doing that. So that one was just really fun throughout the day. I met some cool people on that music video shoot too, and it just came out really nice, and it was just super fun. That was a really positive experience. It was really cool to be part of that production. My other favorite shoot, which I've alluded to before in the video, was I was a model for a camera, for a Canon like camera, and it was like a motion tracking camera, and it was a full-on commercial, and I was actually the lead in it, and I actually got to play real tennis. And this was a cool experience because this is the one where I got paid the most, and 2, they treated me kind of, I almost feel like I got a glimmer into what it's like to be a movie star, because I had multiple assistants. I had a personal translator, 2 assistants, my own hair and makeup stylist, and basically just on set, my assistants would just follow me with like an umbrella, not just one umbrella, but 2 umbrellas, one for like my head and one for like my legs. I had a personal boy who would like run me water back and forth. The director would like ask my opinion on shots, on like different scene setups, and like what I thought as a tennis player would look more natural and would look best, and everyone was just super nice and friendly to me. They would announce my name as I walked off set, and I had like my own little trailer. Like that was a really cool experience. Those are rare though. I had to audition, I think 2 auditions for that one. And they were looking for someone who could actually play tennis. I think that's a big part of why I got it, because they wanted someone who looked like they knew what they were doing. So that, I think my competition was really small, but no, that was a really cool kind of glimpse into what it could be like if you can make it big. So sorry the video came out way longer than I expected, sorry for my rambling, but those were some of my experiences being a model and a bit of advice on how to break into it and what to expect. Let me know if you have any questions, I would love to answer them, and if you've made it this far, please like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. Ja ne!